Namaskara once again. Very, very warm welcome to everyone to the launch of the All School Can Alliance. It is really, really heartening to see you all here today when we embark on this journey. And we really feel energized and hopeful seeing you all here. For this new beginning, we would like to invoke the space by lighting the lamp. I request Padmashri Dr. Ullas Karanth to join us. Sumitra Gautama, Dr. Balu Hegde, Adil from Bhoomi, and Mahir, our student from Prakriya.
असतो मा सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमया असतो मा सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमया असतो मा सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमया ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you. Now I invite Seetha Ananthasivan, Founder Trustee KNA Foundation for Education, to build the context for the Alliance.
Yeah, thank you, Anupama. First of all, thank you all for coming. We all know what Bangalore traffic is, and in spite of all the time it would have taken you here. And I'm really happy. It's really nice to see. Frankly, we did not expect so much of a response also. And I feel that the fact that so many of you are quite unknown to us, meaning personally we've not met you, we might have heard of your school or some such thing, but we really felt happy about all the people we've never been in touch with who have come here. And to me that only means one thing, that this is an idea for which the time has come. That all of you somewhere must be having the seeds, or some of you already working a lot in your own schools, realizing that we cannot be waiting for the government to change the syllabus and so on, but we need to do what we can, regarding nature-based education, regarding climate change and so on. And so at the same time, I feel in a way, while from Bhoomi Network we have taken on the initiative to start this alliance of schools, all schools can, that all schools can bring in climate action and nature education, is something that many people have to co-hold. We are only the initiators, but many people like all of you joining in is what is really needed, And most of us have been working in silos. Maybe a few people have outreach programs and so on. But by and large, the way the school syllabus is designed and the load, especially for the high school children, is such that there seems to be very little time for anything else. But obviously all of you have made the time. And I hope that there's a lot of things we can design together, work on together, and so on. To this group, I don't think I need to talk much about the kind of crisis that that can be expected in the future, and how caring for the future of the children is something that's absolutely unavoidable. I would say it's what they call a no-brainer, that yes, children should learn about nature and the reality of climate change and so on. And we'll be all surprised that many people do feel, oh, why children get involved in all this gory stuff. It's not always gory stuff. With smaller children, we need to introduce them to find ways of connecting with nature. Because if we don't connect with nature, we can't love nature, and we can't love nature, how are we going to preserve or conserve nature in any way, And also the reality that we are nature is often missed. We are ourselves nature. Are we looking at ourselves as nature and what it involves to be, linked to our own bodies, see our bodies, see what's happening to the food, see what's happening to our lifestyle, and a whole range of things. And the problem is that it's all so complex. It's all that we are ourselves caught up with so many things which are not really, which are not good for the whole planet, for our lives, and so on. And that, I think, is because if we look at just a few questions, they have put me on a tight schedule. I have 5 minutes more. Yeah? All right. So, if you were to ask one question about what is the one thing that is creating all kinds of crisis in the world, especially to do with nature, especially climate change and so on, what would you say? Just one phrase. Huh?
Greed. Man's greed.
Greed, okay. Where does the greed come from? Yeah? Human mind, you're pretty close. It's all linked, of course, whether it's, I would say it is our subconscious minds. Because our subconscious minds, it is said, neurophysicists say, that 95 to 98% of our behavior is determined by our subconscious minds. We don't even realize it, we don't think of it, but yet in many ways, if we want, we can find out more. We can't go into it more here, but it's a big reality. That our subconscious minds, take a simple thing like what we like to eat, the accent that we have, how we often can get stuck with one way of talking, or so many things, so many little things, including greed, including, we are beginning to follow the American dream. There's more and more to achieve, more and more to have, to buy, to, So that too is so much embedded in our subconscious minds. So it's all, a large part of that is shaped in childhood. Large part of that is shaped in our childhood, and therefore all the more reason why we need to start with school. Not that we can do magic, but we can make a beginning. we can do certain things. And I think you will find that some of the people who have been working in their schools with nature, it does so many things for them. The children, I mean, today we know that our subconscious minds are completely programmed with what is schooling for. If you ask the question, it is for exams, it is for, doing well, getting a good job, etc., etc. Well, I won't deny that that also is a need, but yet it's also important to look at how the programming of the mind of the child happens in so many ways. It's not enough to, let's say, learn from books, textbooks, and the chalk and board method, as they call it, because that doesn't seem to shape the subconscious minds of the child. Because if you are going to talk about junk food, but you serve junk food in the canteen, the children get the message, what is really true, and so on. We can go on and on about how children's minds get shaped. And unless we also do other things. And what is these other things? If we use only this books and learning from books method, it doesn't seem to help children to deeply absorb these realities. So there is no way except to have, if I go on to next, how can we include education about nature or nature-based education, climate action education in schools? There is no alternative but to go in for more experiential education. Now, that seems to get absorbed by children in a very different way. And children anyway love that, love activity. Active learning, one could say, or it is experiential learning. There are people who call it learning with head, heart, and hands. There are people who, there is, I think, another formal kind of a word for it is action pedagogy. So when there is action pedagogy, when it helps to lead to action as well as learning also is through action. These are the only ways in which we can help form the consciousness of the child, which is again comes from the subconscious mind over a period of time. The consciousness, the values, the attitudes, the belief systems, all of these have been shaped in a very different way in the last so many decades, and maybe even centuries back it started. And how can we, it seems like a huge task, but I think we will listen to people who have done some work in their schools. And such work not only helps to create this consciousness, they've also found it actually helps children do their academic work better. Because children are just stuffing more and more into their heads is not making them learn always better. Some learn that way, but not all. Many, many children are more kinesthetic in their natural abilities. They learn better in an action-oriented way. And perhaps, they also working together, collaboration, working in a community, looking at places near them, place-based education. There is so much that is being done around the world. So we thought something like this alliance can not only introduce many of us to each other, what we can do, what we can learn from each other, but also there are schools around the world, who are, I can't say it's become a major movement or anything, but it's a small movement which has started. Many, many schools in many countries. Only 2 countries have declared climate change education as compulsory, and that's Italy and Mexico. But over time, I'm sure there is no escaping this. So why don't all of us be the pioneers? Why don't all of us form alliances to work with, experiment, do some work with children and learn from each other and so on. That's the purpose of the All Schools Alliance. So welcome again to all of you. But on second thoughts, I said I wouldn't thank you too much, because we are also here for a very selfish reason. Because it's for our own children, for our own children personally, as well as our own school children. So what we are, and also it is selfish on us that I see many youngsters here. Probably in your own time you will see a lot of the issues created by the climate crisis that we have to face. And maybe some of us older ones also might be facing a few things within a decade or two. So I feel for multiple reasons the time has come to give children what they deserve. Real life learning about nature, their own nature, nature around them, and learning to look at their future and how they can be part of the solution. Because, I mean, there is a cliche, many of you would have heard it, which is if you're not part of the solution, then you must be part of the problem. So there's no way. There's either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. So in that sense, I think it's wonderful that all of us want to be part of the solution. So let's continue with this session and see how we can take steps in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Seetha. A small request, can you all please put the mobile on either silent mode or switch it off, please? Thank you. It's really a great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Padmashri Dr. Ullas Karanth. He really doesn't require too much introduction, but here it goes. Dr. Ullas Karanth is the Emeritus Director of the Centre for Wildlife Studies, which he founded in the year 1984. He has also served as country director and as a consultant senior scientist of the Wildlife Conservation Society, New York. Dr. Karanth is an adjunct professor at the University of Florida, the University of Minnesota, and the TIFR National Centre, Biological Sciences, Bangalore. Padmashri Dr. Karanth has conducted long-term research on the ecology of tigers, other predators and their prey in India and other parts of Asia. His areas of expertise include large carnivore ecology, modeling of animal populations, as well as conservation biology and policy. He has published over 150 scientific papers in prestigious journals. In recognition of his contributions to wildlife conservation, he was awarded the Karnataka Rajya Prashasti in 2011 and the National Civilian Honour Padmashri by the President of India in 2012. I request Dr. Karanth to address the gathering. Please, sir.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Ellarigu namaskara. I was reading the book that Seetha and her colleagues had brought out about the approach to education that hooks people onto nature as a radical alternative to going to the class and getting bored day after day. I think I agree with many of the ideas because I have been a guinea pig in one such experiment. My father, Shivarama Karanth, was very influenced by Maria Montessori. He did not believe in formal schooling. He said schools are slaughterhouses of children's curiosity. So he started his own school called Balavana in Puttur in 1930s. There was no textbook, no nothing. Kids played. He taught. My mother, Leela Karanth, taught. There were a few teachers. But, after struggling hard, he found that parents didn't send the kids to the school because it did not have recognition from the government. So only poor people who couldn't feed their kids sent them to the school because the school was, they were given food and shelter also. So anyway, the school wound up, but he had wildlife in the school. There was a cheetal, there was a sambar, there were animals. It was a real learning school. He's written about his biography. I can't go into that. But we came at the tail end of it. My elder brother, elder sister, a decade older than me and my sister, we never went to school till age 11. We were schooled in Balavana. My mother taught me Kannada. We never learnt English. We absorbed everything through Kannada and a little bit of arithmetic. I went to school at age 11. But this interest in nature, I think, is inherently there in most children. In some kids, it's very hardwired, in some, it's less. But every child, you go and try to buy a toy for a child, it's always a bear or some kind of an animal. Nobody, it's only later when the boys are brainwashed, they want tractors and trains and all that. Otherwise, the first thing is always an animal. This curiosity is killed, it's not nurtured. Luckily for me, I was mad about bird watching. And I had an aunt called Dr. Vasanta Satyashankar in Bangalore, and she gave me Salim Ali's bird book in 1955, and I could identify about 50 species of birds by the time I was 8. But then compulsions of life piled up. I had to get a job, so I ended up doing well in maths in PUC and ended up in NITK Surathkal, which was a prestigious engineering college, where luckily Seetha's husband Ravi and I were college buddies together. Neither of us were interested in engineering. I was less so. I escaped the classroom through the back door. I climbed Kudremukh in 1964. I went to Nagarhole in 1967. I wandered the forests of Malnad to watch wildlife. But the reality around me was tragic. Tigers were being hunted, forests were being cleared, for agriculture, country had to feed growing populations. Forests were being logged. Forest department revenue was 60% of Karnataka government's revenue. Tigers were regularly shot and paraded in the streets of Bangalore and Puttur, where I was born. So the culture was all about tigers and wildlife. South Canara has an animistic Bhuta worshipping culture. There is a tiger dance. All the living tigers fascinated me, but they were on 2 legs. The 4-legged tigers were being wiped out. So I went everywhere looking for tigers, looking for wildlife, which was on the retreat. And I was not interested in college. And I was pretty low in my grades. And in the second year I had read every hunting book. My dad had read me Jim Corbett's books. I had read all the wildlife books by old colonial types, etc. But in 1966, Life magazine, which my father used to subscribe to, had an article by a scientist called Dr. George Schaller. He had come and done a scientific study of tigers in Kanha National Park in India in 1963 and 64 and published this. This article was a summary of a magnificent book he wrote much later. But at that point, it was very clear to me in my mind, this kind of sneaking away to the forest to watch wildlife was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like Schaller. I wanted to study animals using scientific methods and collect data that didn't exist. So it was very clear to me. From then, I tried to steer my career into being a wildlife scientist to study tigers. That was very clear to me in my mind. And like Ravi was clear, he wanted to be an engineer, Seetha's husband. I did not want to be an engineer, I was forced to be an engineer. So I spent few years in Myco, I sold tractors, I finally even bought a farm and farmed for 10 years and tried to constantly move towards a career in wildlife. The things came my way. I don't have too much time, so I won't go into that in great detail. But I got exposure to some scientists, wildlife scientists in US, and they said, turn your field notes into scientific notes, publish in journals, then doors will open for you. Because I wanted to get trained in wildlife biology, and there was no program in India, and the ones in US were very expensive, there's no way I could have gone. But in any event, I ended up, luckily for me, there was a conference in Bombay in 1983. I was already 35 years old. I had a lot of natural history knowledge. I ended up meeting scientists of the Smithsonian Institution and University of Florida who had just completed a study of wild tigers in Chitwan, Nepal, using radio telemetry for the first time in India, catching and putting radio collars on tigers and all. But in between, the situation had changed. When I was a college student, tigers were on the brink of extinction. But in 1970s, 71, 67, Mrs. Indira Gandhi came to power, and she had a deep passion for conservation. And she listened to conservation. She was the first Prime Minister to listen to conservation, and she also had an incredible charisma and popularity with the common people of India. So, for all her populism, because of her populism, she was able to bring the strongest conservation law, the Wildlife Protection Act in 1973-74, launched Project Tiger, and within 10 years, because of the hard work of conservationists, the foresters of those, pioneering foresters of those days, and Indira's strong iron-handed rule and control over chief ministers, wildlife started recovering. So those of you who see Discovery videos of tigers in Ranthambore and think this was how it was, it wasn't. It happened after 1974, and the first dramatic decades were really important. So by the time I ended up in the University of Florida, formally studying wildlife, I had the stage set to come back to India. And luckily for me, when I just finished my master's degree, in the college I was last in my class. Maybe Ravi was next ahead of me in the queue. But in my class in Florida at age 37, I was top of my class. So Dr. George Schaller came to University of Florida. He was very impressed by what I was doing, and he said, we'll hire you for New York Zoological Society, as it was called then. You go back to India, do research on tigers, we will pay you a salary, we will cover your costs. It was like suddenly doors opened for me. And when he dropped me at the airport, he made a remark that he was a man I had admired. He's the first person who had studied tigers. First person, Dan Fossey, was inspired by him. He's the first person to study gorillas, first person to study lions, first person to study giant pandas. He is a legend in our profession. As I get off the car, he said, Ullas, I envy you. I was stunned. He said, you are going to be in the jungle watching tigers. There's no experience like that. It really moved me. And I said, I have to not only do this study, but I have to do something to save these tigers, because things were not yet safe. First decade of Project Tiger. So that's how I began my career. The key thing here is, if conservation, the field of conservation is often misunderstood. It is confused with a few other things like animal welfare, loving individual animals, having a cute German Shepherd pet. It's none of those. It is, wildlife means terrestrial free-ranging animals. Animals that are wild, not fed, not artificially managed, and which are free to move around. So that is the definition of wildlife. Not all the domestic animals that we have and our friendly Fred, the friendly dog, none of those are wildlife. So terrestrial free-ranging vertebrates, and scientific conservation as defined has three goals. One is very obvious. Things are declining, you have to recover it. It has two other goals, which is, if some species or an individual of a species becomes harmful to human society, you have to eliminate it. That is your responsibility. Because if you don't do that, there will be no social support for conservation. If there is a man-eating tiger going around school children in some rural area, and people in Bangalore say the tiger shouldn't be shot, we should, take care of it and release it somewhere else, and all these impractical things, support for conservation among rural people will collapse. So we have to take some hard decisions to meet the second objective. Not always, but it is necessary. Third is there are many species we don't realize, particularly in inland fisheries or river fisheries, but in many other countries for other species, people use animal protein as a part of food. So sustainably harvesting wildlife is also a part of wildlife conservation. Its knowledge base has to go there, but that is not relevant in India. But it is relevant in other places. So from this approach of scientific conservation, when you look at the challenge of recovering nature, which is the primary objective, we have to again break through some definitions. We talk about environmentalism, nature conservation. Two are not the same. You can define environmentalism very broadly as having nature intact makes the world a better place for us. Watersheds are protected, maybe some climate change is mitigated because of natural vegetation. But at the center of it is us, our species, human beings. It makes the world better for us. So environmentalism is all about making the earth more habitable and better for us, a single species. It's not wrong. Everybody is selfish, of course. We want all human beings to be happy and well fed and live well. But the goal of conserving nature and the second goal of environmentalism sometimes come to clash. We have to be very clear-headed in this thinking. Muddying up things and mixing up things doesn't work. So, the reason for all this is the fact that nature has retreated to an extent precisely because of us. It is not because we are bad. And I do not agree it's because of bad thoughts we have. It is simply because the way we are a part of nature in a fundamental way. We are a large-bodied, socially grouped ape, which also is omnivorous. We don't have teeth for eating grass. We have teeth for mixed diet. That's how we evolved. So when we evolved, we competed with other species, and there were several steps in our evolution that gave us tremendous advantages, and gradually we came to dominate the earth. Not because we are bad, it is simply because we, through our acquiring of superior capabilities, were able to completely dominate the earth for our own good. Right or wrong is a different issue. But that is how it happened. So I will give you some examples of this. Two examples. I don't have too much time. I want to stick to my time. One is, we talk about loving nature. We are mammals. We are warm-blooded animals. Our kids are fed breast milk. That is a mammal. We are mammals. When did we evolve? We evolved from earlier forms of hominids, came out of apes, then hominids, the upright walking apes, lost our tails, and then about 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, our species, evolved. The present day humans are about 3 lakh years old. At that point in time, there's a brilliant scientist called Bill Rees, who's worked on the idea of human footprints and energy consumption of humans, land use of humans versus other species. I don't have time again to go into it, but one simple statistics. 3 lakh years ago, when Homo sapiens, in whatever numbers they were, I don't have the exact number in my head, roughly, they formed 1% of the biomass, that is the total weight of all mammals. There were mammoths, there were all sorts of large mammals. The world was full of biodiversity. We formed 1%. And we hunted and gathered. That's how we lived. The only invention that we had got earlier from Homo erectus was the fire. We had learned how to improve our habitat by burning the forest. But beyond that, we didn't have the technologies. These gradually, as we developed, the Stone Age, the various kinds of cultures, we were able to modify our habitat drastically, unlike any other animals, and were able to spread our range. We kind of acquired language about 50, 60,000 years ago. We walked out of Africa about 70,000 years ago, and within 15, 20,000 years, we had reached Australia, we had reached southern tip of South America, walking across. Our domination was gradually increasing. With culture, coordination, hunting, all this came in with language. Then about 10 to 15,000 years ago, we learned to domesticate a few plants, we learned to domesticate a few animals. So if you look at the biomass of mammals versus humans, 3 lakh years ago, humans were 1%. But 30,000 years ago, 10,000, 15,000 years ago, if you weighed all the human beings and all the domestic animals, they formed 30%, that 1% had climbed to 30% of all mammals. And today, if you did the same exercise, all wild creatures, wild nature is 2% of the earth's biomass. Rest is us and our dogs and donkeys and cats and cows. That is our domination. The second thing is, I'll give you an example of India. We talk about conserving nature. Somewhat natural forests cover, they are not legally, the area may be more, cover about 10% of India. Areas earmarked for full nature protection, which are the wildlife reserves or protected areas, cover 4% of India's landmass. And yet, when we try to get more areas declared or try to protect wildlife, there is always a hue and cry saying, no, we don't want more space for wildlife. There is barely 4%. What love of nature are we talking about if we are not going to argue in favor of more space for nature? It's all talk. So I have no qualms in any debate saying I stand for wildlife. It needs more space, not less than 4%. So these are some clear things we have to do. It's very nice to talk in ambiguous, fuzzy ways. So there needs to be the space, there needs to be a regulation on what we are extracting, and that brings us to the question of our numbers. We are at 8 billion now across the world. We will plateau at 10 billion by the year 2050. But the problem is not only numbers are more, consumption rates are more, life expectancy is more. When I was born in 1948, life expectancy at birth in India was 32 years. It's 64 now. It's 84 years in some other European countries, and it's 90 some years in Japan. And this is the trend, and it is progress. I'm not saying it's bad, but we have to recognize the per capita consumption levels have shot up hundreds of times. Not only are the numbers growing, the rate of consumption that accompanies human progress, once again I am saying human progress isn't something I'm questioning. I'm just recognize the reality, the combination of these two, what is leading to what is called overshoot, ecological overshoot. The biophysical capacities of the earth to sustain this level of human population, which occupies 99% of mammal biomass, is leading to overexploitation of nature, nature's ability to absorb shocks, recycling of various chemicals. So climate change is not the problem. Climate change is the symptom of a bigger problem of overshoot. So unless you address the problem of overshoot, climate change cannot be solved. And people have to try to guess, say that what if people have a standard of living kind of somewhere in the, not at the upper end of the Western civilization, somewhere in the middle, and you had How many people could the earth support? There are various arguments. Cambridge economist Partha Dasgupta mentions a figure of 1.5 billion people on earth, and Bill Reeves mentions maybe 2 or 3 billion people of earth. So clearly earth can support people, but not 8 or 10 billion people at this consumption levels. There is a third argument. There are two other points I just want to make. I have just 1 minute left, so I'll be very brief. One powerful, because you have to think of solutions also, because arm waving, wearing a green t-shirt and running around your school or Vidhan Sauda is very easy. But the point is, where do we go from here? And one of the things is the idea that partitioning the earth, carving up tomorrow's world in a rational way, that some space for nature is kept intact. This approach is called sustainable landscapes. So we recognize, rather than hanker for going back in centuries in time to some pristine times which never existed in the first place, or saying we can have development everywhere, which seems to be the current model, and we don't need to leave any space intact for nature. The idea behind sustainable landscapes is you need certain areas that are intact, protected for other species and wild nature and natural diversity of plant and animals. Certain other areas earmarked for intensive production of energy, resources, manufacturing, metallurgy, mining to meet the needs of the society. And another chunk in the middle where some biodiversity, like agricultural landscape, where some biodiversity and some development can coexist. This idea was proposed by John Robinson, my professor in Florida, who proposed this as an alternative to Caring for the Earth, a document that WWF and Grove, Harlem Brundtland, UNEP, they all came. It became very popular, but it actually said you can have your cake and eat it too. So John said, you can't, this is what you should do. The second powerful idea that has come in the last 20 years, proposed by many people, the most famous one is, of course, Lovelock, who proposed the Gaia hypothesis. Then the guru of counterculture in the 1960s, Stewart Brand. This is called eco-pragmatism, which is that extracting more from nature is not the solution. You have to substitute, decouple our needs from non-extractive uses of nature, reduce extraction and substitute, don't reject technology, but innovate with technology so that what you are extracting from nature, your impact on it is reduced. And they have strongly, all these people strongly argued in favor of, not against, in favor of nuclear power, in favor of modifying plants rather than putting through advanced genetics, rather than pumping more chemicals and building more dams and throwing more pesticides. So this whole approach of decoupling and sustainable landscapes and striving, there are different alternatives. Some are saying economists are completely economics as practiced is delinked from ecology. We need to merge the two, and people who argue that growth has to be brought down, growth has to be of a different kind, I don't know, but very, very interesting ideas. But one thing is very clear to me, science, innovation and looking towards the future can help us reduce the overshoot problem. Climate change is a symptom, but the overshoot problem can be addressed that way, not by dreaming romantically about going back to some past that doesn't exist. So I am upbeat and optimistic because I have seen some signs of this happening in a random, non-designed way in my own landscape. The days when Ravi and I were students and I was looking for tigers and they were almost gone, there were less than 70 or 80 tigers left in the Karnataka Malnad region, and they were going fast. Today the average wage of a poor person has risen from 2 rupees per day to 300 rupees per day. Average life expectancy has risen from whatever it was, 30 to 70 or whatever is in that region. Economic growth rate is even faster than the country. Literacy has risen. Industrialization, infrastructure have all grown. People are certainly better off compared to what they were when I was growing up. And there are 350 or 400 tigers. So there is some lesson here, because if you fundamentally analyze from the perspectives I argued, number one, the biomass of competing livestock with wildlife has come down drastically. Mechanized tractors and mechanized ploughing equipment have replaced livestock, which used to overgraze the forest. The numbers of livestock, free grazing livestock, have come down drastically. The second thing is the traction, the bullock carts. One could see 300 bullock carts between Mysore and Bangalore if you drove, has been replaced by motorized transport. Women used to cook using firewood in congested houses, breathing these noxious fumes. LPG has replaced them. There's basically a fundamental reduction in the withdrawal, extraction of biomass because of technological progress. So I'm not daydreaming. I'm still a very optimistic, and I think your wonderful ideas of, and I hear teachers are going to have some discussions about this, of getting kids interested in nature is the hook. They will get interested, but also you should make them think, question everything, and not reject science in favor of emotion. Emotion is necessary, but without science it's hot air. It doesn't lead to any concrete solutions. So I wish the sessions and Seetha and her colleagues wonderful effort, all success. I'm a guinea pig who has survived this model, so rest assured kids will do well under this model. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We'd like to just call you back on stage for a few moments. I request Seetha to come and gift a token to Dr. Ullas. Thank you, Seetha, and thank you, Doctor. Now we begin with the first panel discussion. I would like to welcome the panelists on stage. The first to join us is Mohammad Ataullah Khan, Principal, KK English High School. Sarvesh Srinivasan, Director, Gear Foundation. Sharon Lingdong, Principal, Prakriya Green Wisdom School. I would also like to invite the moderator, Adil, from Bhoomi College. I will just take a few minutes to introduce our panelists here. Mr. Ataullah Khan is the principal of KK English School, Vartur. He is a known name in the field of lake revival, Vartur Lake. His various innovative ideas about integrating nature in the day-to-day of school curriculum has been a constant source of inspiration for all of us. The connect he feels with nature and his will to make a difference reflects in all the stories he shares. The next, Mr. Sarvesh Srinivasan, Director of Gear Foundation. Sarvesh Srinivasan, he has a very diverse work experience in various fields, which includes designing and mentoring. He was a partner at Think Design, a firm that believes in pushing the boundaries of design. At Think CIQ, he served as an operation director, responsible for executing the founder's vision and making the venture self-sufficient. We also have Sharon Lindong here. Sharon is the principal of Prakriya Green Wisdom School. Having lived in the hills of Shillong right up to her adulthood, her connect with hills, trees and forests is deep and elemental. She has also seen firsthand how a short-sighted development-oriented paradigm has destroyed the sacred and beautiful. Her belief that living in harmony with nature is the path to a compassionate world has enabled her to connect with and commit to the school's Nature Connect programs, Green Wisdom classes, and give shape to them. Lastly, we have Adil Basha, a facilitator at Bhoomi College. Thank you. All yours, Adil.
Thank you, Anupama. Namaskara, everyone. So I was just doing some math, and I was just adding up the total experience of the panelists here, or the entire number of years since the existence of all the schools that are represented here. And I think my number is somewhere around 100 like years of experience in terms of not just work done in nature education, but just a lot of just work done in the sphere of education. So we have about 50 minutes to decode or distill 100 years of wisdom. So that sounds doable. So that's the reason why initially we did not have a Q&A planned. But we will try to take some questions if there is enough time. Yeah, I think for me, Dr. Karanth's talk, I really connected to his talk when he spoke about not being interested in engineering, because I could really connect to that. I did a master's in mass communication and journalism. I did okay at it, but I didn't really connect to it because it was the first time that I was introduced to nature. So I grew up in Hyderabad, which is, let's be honest, not the most greenest city in the country. There are no canopy trees. There's not a lot happening. But once I entered the Central University, it was just an amazing place. There were lakes. We had Hyderabad and surrounding area is famous for rock formations. So we had mushroom rocks and other kinds of rock formations. We had lakes, we had deers, we had snakes. Everybody was just walking very slowly, canopy trees. So I think that was the first time that I really connected to nature. And I think hearing Dr. Karanth talk about that, I would like to maybe know from all the panelists, how did your connection with nature form? Like, I know it may not have been a single incident, but when do you think you really deeply connected with nature?
A very warm evening to all of you. In fact, I was very much touched by what Dr. Ullas Karanth was talking about. Somewhere in our psyche, somewhere I know many of us who are here today might not have been here, probably, rather than having the interest towards the climate change and climate and environment and conservation. This happened to me. See, I always ask my students, are you here by choice or by chance? Most of us who have become teachers must have become by chance. A few must have become wanted to be teachers, you would have become. I am a teacher by chance, not by choice, by chance. I grew up in Vartur. I think it's about 20 kilometers from here. And Vartur has got, my place has got the second largest freshwater lake, the Vartur lake, spreading to about 450 acres of land. When I was in my school as a student, I studied in a government school, government high school, Vartur. Saturdays used to be half day school for us, and Sunday holiday. And Saturday was meant for fishing and washing clothes. The whole village women would come to the lake to wash their clothes because the water was so pristine. And children like me and my other friends, we had local fishing rods. We used to go fish. Every Saturday, we would get somewhere about 1.5 to 2 kilograms of fish, fresh from the lake, which used to be our meal in the evening. Later on, when I entered into the college and my post-graduation days, I could really see that the lake was getting slowly polluted. The emission of the foul smell from the lake and the dwindling number of people who used to come there to wash their clothes, and then absolutely no fishing. All fish had died. That was in 1982. That is when I realized that we need to do something, because such a pristine body with fresh water is getting polluted. I spoke to some of my students at that time who were in class 7. We went together, we collected water samples to find out what it is. We didn't have a lab. My brother was doing his environmental studies in St. Joseph's College. We requested the principal of St. Joseph's College as well as Mount Carmel's College to do an analysis of this water and give us the report as to where exactly it stands. We made a small report and we produced it to the BWSSB's at that time chairman, who was shocked. That was the first seed we started with. Now that was in 85 when we gave the report. After almost 37 years, now Vartur Lake has been regenerated, so-called, I put it in inverted commas, so-called regenerated. Government has spent almost about 250 crores for removing the silt, desilting of the lake. And now, again, the BWSSB has messed up the whole thing. The water flow, the drainage system has leaked, breached, the canal has breached, and all the sewage is there in the lake. The intake of our Tur lake, the inflow per day is 450 MLD, million liters per day. We have a sewage treatment plant, STP. The capacity of the STP is just 99 MLD. And that 99 MLD, which it is clearing up, is being sent to Kolar now, to Narsapura and other areas as a feeder to the lakes around there. Now this is how I felt that, no, like how every bank now calls up for a KYC, know your customer. I tell my students, KYN, know your neighborhood. Find out what is there around in your neighborhood. How many trees are there? How many lakes are there? Now, what kind of birds do they nest? Where do they stand? Now, this is how we started the journey. Today, in my school, I can proudly put my collar up and I tell everybody, we have 550 trees. 6 types of birds, species of birds nest in our school premises. We have absolutely no water problem at all. The neighbors have gone up to 1,600 feet, but my borewell is just 480 feet deep. We have a pond which recharges the rainwater. We don't let even a drop of rainwater flow out of our school premises. It stays there, it percolates, the trees help in percolation. And we have 2,000 gallons of water throughout the year anytime. And the trees, 550 trees, in about a matter of 15 years, have sequestered 900 tons of carbon. And all these things, the children themselves, they do the study. When Karan sir was talking about sustainability, development we can't stop. The same way we can't say no to plastics. We can't say no to plastic. Because the other side of it, if you look at it, it has saved a lot of mineral resources. But mismanagement of plastic is something which we need to look at. We did a small survey in our school. We asked all the children to collect every week's poly bags which come to their house. So we cater to children who come from the lower strata of the society. Lower income group children. My school has got lower income group children. So again, we wanted to try an experiment and find out how much of plastic comes into their household. So we asked them, some of them had 30 grams, some of them had 40 grams. Then we made it a point, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like that, we assigned to each class one day, plastic day. All the plastic that they collect per week, they must be brought and put it in we had kept huge containers there, they had to just drop it there. They did it. In a matter of 3 years, we collected 1,400 kilograms of non-recyclable plastic. Then it came up in the newspapers. Now, there was one firm which was asphalting the roads using this bitumen. With the bitumen, this plastic was mixed. Anyway, then how to pin this
sorry,
problem?
Mr. Khan, I thought we'll take opening remarks.
Yeah.
But
One
yes,
minute,
sure.
1 minute. So, what we did was, we made the children understand about the menace of plastic, and then we asked them to get old trousers from home. Then we made them stitch bags, and now every student of my school carries a bag with him or her when they go out for shopping. So this is how that small change, a small thought, has made such a big change. That's it. Sorry, I think I took more time. Adil, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I thought we'll do opening remarks, but I guess we'll slide into the theme of the panel discussion.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the question, Adil. It was something that I had not really thought about too much as to what got me interested in the caring for nature or spending time and respecting it and trying to conserve it. So this gave me an opportunity to just look back and kind of reflect. So I think it goes back to when I was, in high school, when the school my father was setting up was just getting off the ground, and he was also a bit more passionate in terms of trying to involve a lot of as a natural material, involve what is locally available, and I was exposed to something like mud plasters, stabilized mud block, all of these aspects when I was not even in, I would say, 8th grade or 7th grade. So I think that was a spark that got me interested in it, and it continued over time. Wherever there was an opportunity to delve into more about the environment and understand more about it, or to be able to contribute to it, I was there. Like post grade 10, I did a course with A3. Then post that, I got into architecture, like Anupama ma'am said, and through architecture I got an exposure into, got to spend about a good chunk of a year in Auroville, where stayed there, did my internship there, and that really inspired me to get a bit more into sustainable way of life, where you look into all aspects, from the embodied energy of materials to what you do in the eco-space, as well as how waste is treated, like how Sir was just talking about. So yeah, I said that would be my spark, and what got me interested into this whole theme of being very conscious about what we're doing to our planet and how we can start inspiring the next generation as well. I hope that was...
Thank you, Sarvesh.
Namaskara. For me too, it made me think, this question. I've never really thought about it. I grew up in a single-parent home, and I think I was very left on my own with my sister, and I think that really did it. And the fact that Shillong is a place where the sky seems closer than Bangalore, where Bangalore is, the sky, and Bangalore seems to be a little further. So I think that was it. We just ran and had some fun, and when we had free time. Otherwise, it was a very conventional upbringing. In fact, it was only when I came down to Bangalore that I realized how much I missed home and the space, because Bangalore had so many buildings everywhere, and everyone seemed very fast at what they did. So that's when I began to honor and see that there was a lot more to where I had come from as well. Another aspect is when I did join Prakriya school. I think I was lucky enough to join it pretty quickly. As soon as I came down to Bangalore, I think it took about 1.5 years, and then I joined Prakriya. coming to that space day in and day out where, you have the trees, you have open space, it was a healing, I think. And I do believe that for all of us who go there, because of this space, I think it does something to the children, it does something to all of us adults as well. I have a lot of our colleagues here. So it opens up the mind in a different way, and this experience, I think, whatever else we take from Prakriya, I think this is something that is fundamental. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I would definitely agree. Thank you to all the panelists for sharing. Being part of Bhoomi Prakriya for the past 12 years, I would say that the campus has been one of the biggest teachers for me as well. I think what we'll do is we'll get into the discussion about the panel discussion. I think something that Seetha spoke about stayed with me. I think she mentioned pioneering energy, if I'm not wrong. I think what I've at some point remember reading about is diffusion of innovation. Like, how does innovation actually happen? Whether it's in an individual or an organization, how does it happen? And I think it's really, there's a curve in which the first innovators or the pioneers, you just need about 2.5 or 3% to really be innovators. And then there's early adopters, then there's early majority, late majority, and I think, I'm not sure about the political correctness of the term, but laggards who pick it up at the end. So I think something that stayed with me was how do we have more pioneering energy in schools so that we can take this climate action, education, nature education, because this will involve doing something new. And we have, I think, a lot of principals, maybe directors here, people at leadership level from schools. And also we're recording this and we hope to reach out to many other leadership level people at schools as well. So just wondering what does that look like, having pioneering energy in a school. Maybe we can start with Sharon.
Okay. So I think, again, speaking from Prakriya's experience, we're a 25-year-old school. And I think over the years, there have been so many people who have added to this. So while the philosophy of the school stands on, diversity, respecting diversity at the core level, looking at nature and the embeddedness, right? All of us, the embeddedness of nature. While that has been the core, I think we've had so many people, all of us, who have joined in, who have in a way learned a lot, and in that process given back in many, many small ways. So initially, I remember when Prakriya was, when I had joined initially, I remember we used to have village interaction, much like yours, what you were talking about, know your neighborhood. And I remember us going out into the village and taking, it was a nature walk. It was also getting to know the people around, getting to know the people who live there. Now we don't have that because our world has changed, right? Outside Prakriya, we now have apartments. So yeah, many, many apartments. So, but what I'm trying to say is there have been many of these programs, whether it is the Nature Connect program, whether it is our textbooks. We've had, many teachers who have put together their efforts to put down literature that is, while it is in consonance with the ICSE curriculum, ICSE board requirements, it also brings in a little bit more of nature into the text itself. So, and it allows us to try out many things in that way. So I don't know whether I've answered your question, but I think there have been those pioneering, efforts that have been through many years that have built the school to where it is even now.
Absolutely. I think collective wisdom is really important as well.
So basically, it's trying to understand how do we inspire the rest of many other schools to get into caring for the nature and the environment around them. I would say I think we're at a time where all schools need to start looking out of the textbook and look around themselves and realize that, like ma'am shared, the time has come. We can't be laggards anymore. We have to really buck up and not wait for some direction from the board or anyone else, but look at the world around ourselves and understand that if we do not take the action right now and we do not ensure that the next generation is really connected and understands the value of the nature and environment around themselves, we would definitely, it will not be the situation where it is by the time they graduate, because most of them would be in school for a good 10-15 years and then after college. So we need to be able to be forward looking enough to ensure that they are inspired to take up some action by themselves, take up action within their own families and communities to ensure that they have something to look forward to be able to bring about a change. So it's no longer a thing that, okay, it's a nice thing to do or it's something that we would like. It's a need of the hour, especially in today's world where especially children in the cities who don't really get that much to experience the world outside or nature or wildlife or forests, where everything comes on an app. So it's definitely the responsibility of schools to bring in some connect to how life was maybe a generation or two behind before, where resources were scarce, so everything was valued, and I think it starts from there, ensuring that the next generation understands just having access to resource doesn't mean you need to consume it, but being respectful and using what's needed. So I think that value is what needs to be grown in school, and that's only when we all are conscious about the kind of generations we're trying to bring into the world. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
See, we as teachers, I think we are the change makers. Because the lives of those children, they are there with us for about 10, 12 years. Some of them are there for 14 years. We can impress and then create a niche in their psyche, like how Seetha was talking about the subconscious. Now, we as teachers, we have a lot of responsibility. That's what I personally feel. And simultaneously, that commitment. See, let us not forget that we are living today by borrowing the tomorrow of those children who are under us. And what moral right do we have to spoil their future? The previous generations have already done what we are facing today, right? But do we need to move in the same direction as they have done? No. There needs to be a change. See, sustainability is something which we have to make the children understand. Then secondly, we also make the children understand how important role they are playing in balancing the nature, not in mismanagement. Now for that we need that commitment. See, I tell my children and my teachers also many a times, most of the yogis and other scholars have said that you want to be healthy, you fast at least a day in a month. We need to fast at least a day in a month. Not fasting by skipping your meal or not drinking water or anything like that. You need to do a fast by switching off this. You switch this off for a day. don't look at your don't go through Facebook or WhatsApp or Insta or Snapchat or anything, then you will have plenty of time to do something, to give back something to the nature. This is what we do. Children, every Sunday they go and water the plants. I would like to share one incident. The Rotary Club, about 20 years back, one group of Rotarians came to me saying that we came to know that you are doing so much of tree plantation, saplings and all that. Now for this academic year we have decided, our president is very enthusiastic about environment. So he has a plan for 1 lakh saplings to be planted around Vartur, Gunjur and Whitefield. Was that wonderful? Very good numbers, no? 100, 000. I said, okay, fine. What are your plans? Do you have funds for that? They said, yes, we will mobilize funds. Then, you have any plans? They said, no, that's why we came to you. I said, fine. 1 lakh I don't want. Think of 1,000. Then 1,000, you bring the saplings, plant them, and then if you want to put up a hoarding there and take a selfie or a photograph and then post it, I am sorry, I will not. Then I said, why? After planting the sapling, tell me that you are going to take care of those saplings for 3 years by watering them in the month of February, March, April, till the rains occur. If you promise funds for that, we will do it. The president at the time was a lady, she got very wild and she just walked out and said, no, this man is giving us some idea. He is puncturing our whole idea of 1 lakh tree plantation. Then I said, please, if you want to walk out, yeah, please go. That's not my problem. You came to me, right? But later on, after a week, some of the other people who were there who thought that, yes, what I was talking was something practical. They came back. She also came back. Then she said, yeah, I understood why you said like that. Then they came in 2 lakes. One is next to Krupanidhi College. Then the other one is in Gunjur main road itself. One is Mavin Kere, the other one is Gaurama Kere. 13,000 saplings we have planted. And they took care of those for 3 years, including the volunteers from TCS company. Today now we have adopted another lake where we have planted almost 350 saplings with the help of TCS volunteers. The village panchayat of Neriga village panchayat, the place is called as Chiknekundi Lake, 2 kilometers from my school, has given us permission for setting up a butterfly park in 10,000 square meter area. That is coming up. Now for that, you have to fast one day. Keep your mind switched off. We can do wonders, I tell you. We can do wonders. And all of us can be a part of that wonder, which maybe probably the whole country can take it by the help of Bhoomi and Seetha and Ravi. They're so enthusiastic about the whole thing. We can definitely make a difference. We can make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I think we have 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes. Okay, we're already at the closing remarks stage. Maybe one more question before we get there. So I think one of the things that Mr. Khan also mentioned was how do you create long-term engagement? How do you just not start something and then give it up? How would you say that, I think in the audience we have people representing organizations that are working deeply with nature education. There are some people representing educational startups who run initiatives. What would you say is the best way to engage with all these different stakeholders to build capacity within the school itself, so that we can go ahead and have nature education within the schools? So maybe we can again start with Sharon.
I thought I would be last. So I think if I look at the programs that we have, a lot of it is, and if it has to make an impact, definitely it has to be consistent and done over a period of time. one of the things that I really cherish about Prakriya is that we have a lot of people, resource people, who come in to school. So we have one who comes in for just the gardening program. And because she's so passionate about it, it runs in a certain way. We see children wanting to touch the soil, understanding how from the seed to to the plant, to see that entire process. So engagement has to be definitely long term. We've also had, if I look at it, a lot of our alumni. So I'm just going to talk about how various things I see impact our children. We also have a great body of alumni who come back, and although when they were in school, they were quite troublesome. But as alumni, they have been a very rich resource for us as well, in terms of shaping responses and in terms of really looking at, okay, how being in school, being in this environment shapes their way of thought and what they can take forward. The third is, I think, having a body of people who are willing to come to schools, knowing them, having that list, I think, for us as a school would be, it's absolutely fantastic, because then we get to tap into that and make it available to all of us, right, to all our children. So in this way, I feel what we're trying to do now, creating this alliance, is really something very powerful, because it can really open up doors which until now have probably not been as open and if more and more schools come together and we create the hub that we require, that can do wonders. So yeah.
Thank you.
What can a wonderful audience like yourselves do to help support and ensure it's long-term and sustaining? I think I definitely agree with what ma'am just shared. Sharon just shared about involving resources and sharing resources and ensuring that these expert individuals who are really passionate and deeply involved in their own small niches are able to come and interact and involve themselves with children. I think I would say take a step beyond that as well and say that, see, like how all of us are united with a common goal, a common vision. That power of association is really important, especially at a young age. And imagine in a class, you might have only 2 or 3 children who might be really passionate and want to do something. And if they are not in that, let's say, a cohort of people who are also deeply passionate and want to do something or support them, it might fizzle out after a couple of years. So providing opportunities for really passionate children to maybe spend weekends or spend their summer break or whatever time they have involved in your organizations, supporting you, even a simple task of helping you move papers around or bringing tea around, but immersed in that space of whatever work you're doing, would definitely give them, I would say, an opportunity to harness their own thoughts and work and come back with a renewed sense of energy and take it forward and inspire a few more children in their class. So yes, as a group we can do wonders, and kudos to the team at Bhoomi to initiate this alliance and see what we can all do when we come together. So yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Exactly like how Sarvesh was talking about a few students who are committed. Probably, yeah, that's right. Awareness and sensitizing the children as a general note can be done for everybody in the whole school. But there are a few kids who are really interested in it. So that those kids can be, their energies can be mobilized by taking up smaller ideas, their own ideas, and spending one Sunday for nature in a month. That would definitely be very helpful. This is what we do in our school also. I don't enforce it on all the children and also on all the staff members. Now anything by force, the result would be zero. Things which are done by that intuition from there comes from within, that really matters a lot. So I always tell, all of us, I think all of us, we are already doing it. We need a commitment. We need a little of sacrifice and a little of adjustment in our lifestyle. A small change in our lifestyle can definitely make a bigger impact on climate, action and nature. Definitely we can. I think, as I said earlier also, together with the help of Bhoomi and Seetha, people like Seetha around, we can definitely make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. I think we're out of time. Apologies if it sounds incomplete, the entire panel discussion, but I was part of the event design committee, so I don't want to take too much of the blame as well. But we really see this as, think of it as a really short trailer. I don't want to say Instagram reel, but think of it as like a short trailer to what's coming up after this event, which is the real alliance building work, which is the real work where collaboration and the real work starts there, where hopefully we don't have just 3 schools that we are showcasing. Hundreds of schools at some point can join this alliance, and that work starts after high tea. So don't be too disappointed if we couldn't have a Q&A, but we have another panel discussion coming up, and I'll hand it over to Anupama. I think we have to give...
Yes, please stay there.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Adil, and thank you so much, all the panelists, for giving us so much food for thought. I request Adil to hand over the token of gift to our panelists here. Muhammad Ataullah Khan, sir.
Sorry for cutting you off.
Sarvesh Srinivasan. Sharon Lingdong. Thank you so much. I also feel like a villain here because everybody's looking at me for time. so thank you so much. Thank you. We heard from our first panelist on the possibilities of implementing CAN in schools, that is CAN. We would like to take the discussion ahead and invite the next group of esteemed panelists to discuss the roadmap ahead on how do we take it ahead. I'd like to welcome the second panelist group, Indira Vijayasimha, founder and managing trustee, Purna Learning Centre. Seetha Ananthasivan, founder trustee, KNA Foundation for Education. Sumitra Gautama, principal Pathshala, KFI. Moderator for this panel is Rama Kumar. She's one of the trustees of KNA Foundation. It is a great honor to introduce Indira Vijaysimha. She is an educationist who has worked extensively in teacher training programs and was a faculty member of the Azim Premji University. Indira is the founder of Purna Learning Centre in Bangalore, an alternative school which promotes inclusive and ecological sustainable education. Second, we have Seetha Ananthasivan, founder trustee, KNA Foundation for Education. Seetha is a founder trustee for KNA Foundation for Education, which runs Bhoomi Network, Bhoomi College and Prakriya Green Wisdom School. Her areas of interest include explorations in inner and outer ecology, ecological education, and working with management processes based on principles of nature. We also have Sumitra Gautama, Principal Pathshala, PCFL KFI. Sumitra has been a facilitator learner at the school and Pathshala. Currently, she is the principal of Pathshala. Pathshala has deeply incorporated practices of sustainable living, and Sumitra has been involved with it from the inception. She has also been part of many outreach programs and reaching out to diverse groups of schools. Handing it over to Rama. Thank you.
Hello. So namaskara everyone and a warm welcome to the panelists. Back-to-back panels may be tiresome, but I'm hoping that all of you are clued in and glued in here. Envisioning the roadmap for the Alliance for Climate Action in Nature in the short time that we have may seem like a tall order, but like Adil was saying, this is maybe the first or one of the many conversations that we will have to share ideas and thoughts, to learn from each other and build it together. So whatever time we have, we'll make the most of it. It may be insufficient, but we'll just do with it. I think for us at Bhoomi, this is an exciting opportunity. We are seeing this as a tremendous opportunity for schools to come together. I'd like to quote the Vietnamese monk, the late Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "The next Buddha will be a Sangha." And it's with that spirit and that intent that we've initiated this alliance, with the deep wish that many schools will join us and will soon grow into a movement. I was deeply touched by what Dr. Karan shared about, the ecological overshoot, which is really the cause of the problem, of the symptom of climate change. And I think schools need to take responsibility for that, education and understanding in children for that. So I'd like to ask you the first question, Seetha, as to what are the possibilities that you see and, for building this alliance, and what is the role that Bhoomi is going to play? Do you want the slides?
Yeah. So this is a tentative, plan we have to get started. We invite schools to be part of the alliance, and the basic, plan for this startup is that we look at all kinds of possibilities, and there are certain, and each school is so different. It's like each person, being so different. Each school has different infrastructure, different maybe numbers of people who may be interested in something like this. Various differences are there. So it's really more of just creating various platforms or fora where people can get together if they want, and how to get started. There are many already who are doing many things, and one simple way in which a lot of sharing can happen is by just creating some kind of resource hubs. But before I go into that, I would like to look at, to make this really happen, I don't see Bhoomi Network alone trying to make things happen. I feel it would be really good to have a group of schools where people have already been thinking. You just saw people in this panel. There is also others like Sumitra, Indira, many others, I'm sure. We would like many of you to be part of what we can call steering committee to start up. A group who will at least be in touch in some way to think of ideas, to keep up the momentum of offerings, of sharing, and so on. So the 5 different kind of, I would say, people who may be stakeholders as well as supporters of this cause. One group will be the steering committee, people who've already been doing a lot of work, or also what I could call nodal points, in different parts of, let's say, Bangalore or other cities. Or, people have contacted us from, I think Uttarakhand, and some people we have talked about from Mumbai or from Chennai and so on. We would like people to, over a period of time, try to form their own clusters and groups of schools and work. It will not be, the structure is certainly not like top down. It's more of a horizontal structure where people learn from each other and do what they can at the moment. So the steering committee is one thing. We hope to be, Bhoomi would play the role of being a kind of a coordinator, like a secretariat to start with, It's not that all the resources in terms of ideas come from us. Ideas will come from everybody, but maybe with the help of a smaller group of people, planning what to do, Like we can plan for programs of different kinds, workshops, online work, etc. So that is one thing about the steering committee. And another major thing that we are thinking of is a Teach for Nature fellowship.
Seetha, that you elaborate in the next question, because that's your next question. So you can just briefly talk about it.
I'm just introducing here.
Yeah. I'm just reminding you.
Covering all the 5 different things.
Yeah, sure.
So the Teach for Nature fellowship, if all of you must have heard of the Teach for India fellowship, which is also, I hear, based on the Teach for America fellowship, where basically youngsters, very often fresh out of college, are invited to join the fellowship. And after a period of training, they go into schools to teach in a way where the entire offerings, the quality of the teaching is different from what the school is able to have. And this has, I think right now the Teach for India fellowship has grown into some 800, 900 people in the country. And I don't want big numbers straight off. I would be happy if there are 10 Teach for Nature fellows we try to work with after an initial period of training, and then go into schools or other places, because we need people to be ambassadors for this kind of work, or teachers of a different kind. I'll come back to more about Teach for Nature later. And then we need, I think, both Sharon and Sarvesh who talked, and they talked about involving other resource people. And this is one thing where we don't only depend on full-time teachers who sometimes have their hands full of enough other work, and they may or may not have time to develop their other deeper interests in something like nature and climate change. but I just generally call them non-formal educators. I'm sure amongst your parents' group or in the neighborhood or in your, in anywhere in the city, there are people working on water, working on, waste management, or even understanding climate change a lot more. All sorts of work there are people doing. If we can only call them in to be resource persons, there'll be a lot of learning which is fresh and different. And children also like to learn from newer faces, new people, look at a lot more hands-on work and so on. So non-formal educators of different kinds can be brought together through such an alliance. And the resource hub I mentioned was a website. In fact, a few years ago we started a website, and I think not having looked at the synergies that can be created from all these different efforts was not thought through deeply enough at that time. We started with a website, but it didn't take off enough. So now we feel with the invitation is for many people to share articles, videos. There's a whole lot of learning today from social media, videos, etc., more than from the textbooks, in this field especially, also in many other fields, be it food, be it health, be it anything. Today, a whole lot of learning is coming from, of course, selected videos, curated ones. Anything and everything doesn't work. So that kind of getting curated stuff put up on this website can be very useful, We have tried to put down some of those names in the couple of books that we have brought out, but there is a lot more. I mean, any one of you may find something very interesting about how to get children involved in any particular project or so on, which it can be easily shared through a resource hub with a whole lot of other people. And one can go more and more because we have to today use technology for all of this. And I think it can also have ways in which there can be exchange programs between schools. Someone or the other may be willing to organize workshops which some other schools may attend. All kinds of things can happen. It's like, schools need not only meet together for sports meets and some standard things. They can meet together, children from different schools, for any other activity that will help them learn about nature and so on. And so that resource hub can be very a useful way of taking work forward, sharing with many others. And Bhoomi Network, as I said, we would play a kind of a coordinator role and also try to keep up the momentum of many things, and particularly the training work for the Teach for Nature Fellows, because we have been conducting 2 other fellowships, one on sustainable living and another one on holistic education for quite a few years now. So we feel we have, we've already been on this journey, so we can continue this by taking it into the Teach for Nature Fellowship. So that's briefly what we have in mind about how to work with the Alliance of Schools. Of course, even to spread the word and to bring in more and more schools into this, we need everybody to participate. And yeah, I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Seetha, for that brief snapshot. I'm sorry to, butt in. I'm also keeping tab on the time. I would like to now invite both Indira and Sumitra to share, your responses. You heard Seetha kind of spell out what Bhoomi is initiating or intending. From your experience, what do you see as possibilities in building this alliance together? And also, are there some challenges that you foresee? So it will give us like a grip in building the roadmap. So whoever would like to go first.
I just love this pentagon. It's really amazing. And I think that though we are not, Pathshala is not in Karnataka, I think we are very enthused. I was sharing your idea with my colleagues, and there was a lot of enthusiasm. And they were saying, this is such a lovely initiative, and it doesn't really need to be area-based alone. And so for me, one of the things that I was thinking about was that, one, it could be area-based. So like if there are schools in an area, they could get together, and there are many ways in which they can get together. Planting was one that Sir so inspirationally talked about. And there can be other things that people can get together around. And we get together, for instance, as a kondatam. So we look at rice varieties. We're a rural school. We're not rural in the sense that we have an international board, but we are located, there are 5 villages around us, and we interface with all these villages. Maybe later I'll speak about how we build equity. But I think the fundamental challenge has been engaging with the scope and the challenges of interfacing with neighbors who, when I've had this doubtful privilege of teaching for many years in an urban school, and then shifting to a completely rural campus. In the urban school, we had a network of, say, 60 schools. And we were engaging with experiencing nature, we were with teacher training, we were liaising with the government, we had a rural interface, we had a place called Kilapakam, which we would spend 1 month, the 11th class would spend in Kilapakam. They would cook, they would wash, they would teach in the local school. We would start their 12th class portions there. They would play in the evenings with everybody who was part of their neighborhood. And it was an SC reservation panchayat. So we had a number of challenges and opportunities, I think, to break stereotypes, to break barriers in the mind, to have discussions which were rich and meaningful, and some of which were very uncomfortably practical also. Who would eat with you, who wouldn't eat with you, because you were actually with people who were from a particular community or caste. So there were a number of opportunities. So to cut a long story short, I think one part of it, whether urban or rural, is area-based interaction. The other is solidarity-based. So for instance, we have done that. We have done that when there were trees that were at risk in Besanagar. Many of the schools in that area rallied around. It didn't matter which school we were in. There was the threat of trees being cut. So all of us were out there. Kids were wanting to be out there. Parents were out there. We were looking at why those trees needed to be cut. And so I remember I was one of the 3 people who went and met the then, Mr. MP Vijay Kumar, who said, who started a journey for the school, I think, when I was teaching there for 25 years. And who started a journey for us into interfacing with the government on many, many meaningful possibilities with public education. So I think that, but we got together in solidarity around not cutting trees in Besanagar. And we went about it in the way that schools can go about it. We did a study, we counted the trees, we did, Niral was there, so we studied what trees were there, and so we did that kind of thing. The other area is example-based. Like, for instance, I was very inspired by some of the things that I heard, Mohammed Sir say. So there are ways in which you can address, I think, inspiration. That you see someone doing something, and then you take it back to your school. I'm planning to take some things back, and then you go and talk it over with everybody. We're a very small community. We call ourselves educator learners and learner educators to build equity among the students and the teachers also. So, so this is one thing. The other is values. So, and I'm not going to be talking elaborately about the values, but I'll name the values. One is equity, because I think this giving model is a very risky model. So you go there and you're initiating something or you're doing something, and you're the one who's helping, and that location can be quite risky. So I think that watching out for that and how you watch out for that is the thing. Empowering initiative, and in that, not being invalidated by other people's responses. See, this becomes very critical with bullying also. It becomes critical as processes in school. Not being invalidated by other people's responses and not giving up and trying out other solutions. So if one door closes, open out another. Our philosophy helps us deal with that rather elaborately, because we have culture classes, we have contemporary studies, we have a number of discussion fora. The other is building lifestyle-based initiatives. We are completely on solar energy. We are a flow-based school. We wash toilets. We have dining, cleaning rota. We manage our own classrooms. We work intimately with the non-teaching staff. They eat with us at the same table, and there is no us and them basically. So we live like that, and I think we live like that is an important thing. And this leads me to, because there's this interface, I keep thinking, suddenly I'm the principal. So there is this scope of engaging with structures and systems. And I think it becomes very important to create little windows in your structures and systems that allow for these interfaces to happen. So what are the initiatives that we can take? So we have a Kondatam, for instance, and I said, what does it matter? Like, whoever is the neighbor, the neighboring schools will attend the program. So we had a bilingual program wherein all the Panchayat Union schools in the area, they were permitted to attend. And we had, for instance, an Ariviyal Kondatam, where one of the kids in class 7 from an Anur school, from the Anur school, said, because energy conversion, it's based on science. We give them materials and they work with their ideas. And the little boy came up, and the young boy came up and said, this idea of energy conversion is a very interesting thing. And these people were saying, our school was saying, you place this in each of the hostels, we'll work out with that, and we'll light a bulb and we'll do this kind of thing. And that boy was saying, my father has a huge problem pulling out water, this etam. You think, as we could, as a group of people, cycle and help him, So it's strange what empowerment can do. And I think it matters that we create fora for this interface to happen, wherever it is, empowerment. And the other is, school initiative. And the other column is, school curriculum. And I think school curriculum can go a long way. We have interdisciplinary week, we have area study week, we have, like I said, the Kondatam, we have events of various kinds that empower students to actually look around them, but also look at themselves. And there are 3 areas, and that's my last statement: doing, learning, and being. And it matters who. Sorry. It matters. Sorry. So doing, learning, and being. If one were to think of these 3 interfaces, then who I am, and what I am doing, and most importantly, what I'm learning to be. So in some ways, if I say I'll do this in CSR, I'm planning to go and work here or there, or I'm working in a very, very polluting industry, I don't mind, so long as they pay me well. And you've got to have discussions that I'm sure all of us are, we're all teachers. So we interface with students who speak to us honestly and tell us where they are. And how do you create a consciousness, a responsible consciousness, not one that they're diplomatically telling you or saying in parent interfaces or writing in their, articles, but actually, where does the difference come? And that difference, tapping into that means looking at their careers, what they choose to be, what they're studying to be, and how you tap into what they're studying to be to introduce what might be, like I would agree with Sir entirely again, because this is what I have interfaced, facilitation requires commitment. Facilitation requires sacrifice. Facilitation requires that you walk the talk. And I think that there's no shortcut to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sumitra. I think we can take some of those into building the alliance, and we'll come to the next question. Indira, would you share what you see as possibilities and challenges, if there are any, that you foresee?
Thank you. I had actually so fascinated listening to that, lost track of the question, so thanks for repeating it. I think, and thank you for organizing this. Initially, my take was slightly cynical because climate change is, for me, it can be seen as part of one more bandwagonism, I was thinking. Like in the 80s, it was all about the ozone layer, then the greenhouse effect, and then there was pollution. Of course, we had a very forward-seeking legislation which said that environment education needs to be part of the school. Yeah, but before, I mean, I can digress, but hearing especially Dr. Karanth's talk was hopeful and made me, rethink, and I'm glad to say I'm feeling much less cynical, so thank you again. Yeah, so one of the challenges is cynicism. I mean, when you've been around and you've fought battles against the Narmada Valley or the nuclear plant, I'm still not convinced that nuclear plants are great things for the environment. And you see the shift, but the core values are the ones that need to be thought of and be sustained, and the connect with nature. So coming back to what are the possibilities, I think this kind of, it's a beginning, and the more we network, and thanks to social media, which apart from the resource hub, allows us to network in very positive ways. Of course it has, and I agree with Sir that digital fasting is very necessary. But on the other hand, it really allows us to connect across and connect also locally. Surprisingly, you put something out and then you find someone who's your neighbor, you never knew, but they'll turn up. And then you have a connection which is made through a very elaborate system of resources and satellite and whatever. And that's really peculiar, I think, the way we human beings work. So the possibilities are precisely, I see that, it keeps us hopeful, it keeps us connected with other like-minded people, and it gives us a chance to reimagine the core values. At Purna, our core values, we have 3, which is holism, and I think they're all, basically the same thing, but I have not, like I said, still working out the articulation of it. So when you talk of holism, it means you also have to be inclusive. And when you study the environment and ecology, you know that when Chernobyl happened, the radiation did not respect the political boundaries, right? Yeah. In fact, that was the reason why it was detected in the first place, because the political people wanted to keep it a secret, right? So that these are, lessons which, and now you have very young children in school who, for them, I mean, it's shocking first when they haven't heard, but then I realized these kids were born several, decades after it. So the thing is that, how do we keep alive the connections? And so you have to be holistic and you have to be inclusive. So I connect with the idea of area studies, and we've started working with the community children around, and in a way organically build the links. Sir has been doing it in his school and his lake. The lake is a site, it's place-based. There are so many terms, and nowadays jargons proliferate. As the bandwagons come, there will be a new jargon. So place-based education, right? Gandhi would have said it very differently, right? Yeah. So, but I think it's okay. It's okay we talk and then we understand, this is what you mean, right? Rather than get very, flustered or caught up in the terminology. I think it's good to be able to dialogue and to understand what you mean, what we mean. And I think the hope is literally when we share stories, we get so inspired. We get so, like, it's so possible. It's so wonderful to have these narratives, and also connecting with, and Bangalore, like every other city now, has lots of organizations when you talk of the non-formal educators. So we have A-Tree, who are our neighbors. We have the Agriculture University, who are our neighbors. We have FRLHT and TDU, transdisciplinary universities, are our neighbors. So we can really draw upon all the resources, formal and non-formal, Nature Conservation Foundation, NCBS. They're all there, available, and very, very willing to, come and talk and help children understand. But our job as teachers also is to help children do. And the doing is becoming more and more distant, right? I mean, think of, again going back, think of the typical scene in our houses where we're all sitting in the same room, but we're not looking at each other. We're looking at some rectangular thing in front of us, right? And then we also use that rectangular thing, which is becoming like some kind of wish fulfilling thing. You want something, you just press a couple of buttons and someone lands up at the door. So connections have to be deliberately made and created. And I think having a network and having an in-person gathering like this is important. But we could also do this online and still connect and probably save us a lot of petroleum miles. So we need to think about it. There are lots of possibilities and there are challenges. And I think both go hand in hand. As the possibilities open up, so do the challenges. And I think we need to remain and, believe you me, this land of ours is something which hasn't lost sight of it. I was reading the book on Emperor Ashoka. Way before social media, he insisted that his message reach every corner from Afghanistan all the way down to Karnataka in stone, and they are still there. And they still make sense. Probably we have tigers. In fact, I had a talk, listened to a talk at the university by a wildlife biologist. He said, no other country has this density of humans and this density of tigers. And yeah, sure, we've lost a few of the cheetahs. They want to bring the cheetahs back. But this imagination in this country is more than 3,000 years old. The fact that we live together, that we are all part of one creation. And there are these wisdom traditions which actually work on our minds. And I don't think it's lost, really. It's that seed which is, manifesting in all of us. And it's important to remember that and, connect in very deep and fundamental ways. I know I've been kind of rambling, so I'm...
No, it's okay. I just feel so bad that we are so short on time. I wish we could have had, more time and listen to each other more deeply, but I have to say that we don't have time. Maybe post, when we have tea, we can have more informal interactions. Two quick questions to Indira and Sumitra before I ask you, Seetha, to elaborate on the Teach for Nature Fellowship. From your rich experience, I mean, both of you have worked to build consciousness, to walk the talk, to live the talk. What are some of the insights you have, or what are some of your own learnings which you feel the Alliance can weave in, like you shared some values, anything that occurs to you, it's fine. We can ramble. Just so that how do we create this alliance? What would you as a wise elder give suggestions, anything that occurs to you? Because I think to build it, we will need all of that.
Yeah, okay. I think the broad contours of the structure are very enabling, and I think having a place where we can share, like the resource hub can also have shared. I'm reminded of the kind of work that is done. The PARI and Ashish Kothari, all of them have stories which are shared, and when you read a story, I think you get inspired to create your own story, and that becomes part of the sharing journey. And the kind of book that you have brought out on nature-based education will inspire people as they do. And somehow, not all of us are very good at writing. So if we could, I don't know how you envisage the fellowship, I'm waiting to hear, but I would really, it would be nice if some young person, I'm saying young, but it is only young in the mind, someone would go around actually visiting and documenting and writing it, and that helps others share. So that would be something that, we could do. We could also create kind of festivals, or it has been happening. Did I see Harini's name on the panel? There was. Yeah, because the university is doing interesting things like having 3-day or 4-day events around rivers, around trees, and bringing school children from various walks of life and schools into. So we could start thinking of doing this in smaller and bigger ways. Competitions are not the way forward, but somewhere to have events where people can come. I think simpler events like getting together to plant trees or to create awareness of the location. I really connected with KYN. I think and I think similar thoughts from here. So we should be doing these kind of things, and I think the fellowship offers a lot of possibilities, including creating materials and putting it out there. That's very, very important. And then getting, people to talk about it.
So I think that underpinnings are important. I think that what you stand on is more important than what you do. And so I would say that, for instance, I put these things down and I don't know if it isn't either academic or outreach, because I think structures do matter. But like Thich Nhat Hanh said, that the structure is full of non-structure things. The flower is only full of non-flower things. So he's supposed to have said that. And I do believe that care for life and the earth, not survival. That caring for my life would make a difference more than saying, oh, I won't survive after 50 years. Or what will you do with your grandchildren? I've finished my life and now what are you going to do with yours? And so on. So I feel that creating fear is not an answer. Like, I wouldn't agree entirely with Indra saying, what competition. No, I wouldn't. I'd say that competitions may not be an answer at any level. But I would say that caring for life and the earth could be a basic premise. Secondly, I think the young need to feel that they can do something even if the impact is small. That I think that the sense of achievement, having taken one step and not saying, oh, but that's just such a small step and there's so much more to be done. There's always a lot to be done. But I think that, standing where I am and feeling, empowered is a very important thing. Thirdly, I think right action is not only result-based. I don't think that, you need to build a result for everything that you do. You can just do something because you're doing, So, and then the challenge of sustainability, I feel very critically, is working with others. So I think that if there are ways in which that can be encouraged in the classroom, we have a system called, and this is why I'm saying about, this thing with Thich Nhat Hanh, we quote to each other in so many ways. So if you're, randomization, we have what's called randomization, wherein even if you're going on a trip, they went on a day trip, they randomize on their own. So I'm not sitting only with somebody who's my good friend, or who's my gang, or so every time I sit somewhere, whether it's a small group, we have active learning, and we have mixed age groups, 5 and 6 are together in our school, 7 and 8 are together in our school. So, so if we look at these groupings, there are contact times, there are discussion times, there are presentation times. So if we are looking at an active learning frame, our subjects are 1 day long. So we get an opportunity to engage with a unit of learning. When we plan our term or we plan a unit, we think very carefully about the nature of the engagements. So I think randomization is a very important thing, that you collaborate not just with people whom you're comfortable with. So in fact, comfort zone is a very pernicious term in our school. So this is your comfort zone. So we challenge comfort zones. So I think that it's important to do that, which is not to say that if I'm feeling friendly with somebody and I want to talk to somebody, I can't do that. But I don't build affiliations. And this is helped by the founder, of course, who said to be alone is to be related. So it helps that somebody said that. So, then I feel that, so the challenge of so these are some of the underpinnings I'm saying. So it could be possible that, and the other is areas. So if you're saying water, recycling, lifestyle, energy, agriculture, not just, in inverted commas, nature. So sensitivity is sensitivity to many things that lifestyle is integrated with. Waste, so, and that. And then wonder, concern, and questioning as a kind of tripartite treaty, So it could be wonder, because I had a colleague with whom I used to have this argument, I was full of concerns. And at that time, one of my concerns was challenging upper middle class mentality, in the school I was teaching in. So I was saying, they've got to see the other Indias. For me, it was a big deal. So we took them to the Narmada, we took them to, the Ruparel, the river, Rajendra Singh. We took them to School of Democracy with Aruna Roy. We took them out. We Center for Science and Agriculture. They saw Indias. And I think this is an important journey, and we did make it part of our 11th class program. And we did this for many years. They still do it, I think. And I think the important thing here is to move on what you see as an important motivation. So, yeah, I'd like to stop there. And I think definitely what the school models, see, for instance, like solar energy or, steam cooking or millet. We eat millet every day. Things like that. So what do you model as a school? Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm again feeling the scarcity of time and the abundance of thoughts and ideas. But like we said, this is one of the many conversations we'll have, and probably the next time we will keep more time. Seetha, to wrap up, if you could share about the Teach for Nature Fellowship, which is a fundamental aspect of this alliance that we are initiating.
Yeah, thanks. I think, I don't know what many of you are left with feeling after listening to Indra and Sumitra. I really feel that they've done amazing work, And in fact, that also made me feel that a whole lot of many schools may not be there at all to have the possibility of doing the kind of amazing work that you have been doing. But yet, it's good to learn, listen, and maybe that may not be one's own, what is possible for oneself, but it's something else. But just stretching beyond the kind of very often very tight structures we work with, and taking one step here, one step there in our own ways. But also there might be some schools which can be very inspired to do very similar things also. And all that, I just want to say one more thing before I look at some specifics of the Teach for Nature Fellowship, which is in schools, we are, the kind of schools we have today, it's all very much goal-oriented in one way or the other. Whether you study for a test or for the final exam or whatever, or even if it's for games, it is to win a particular game or to complete certain craft work. Everything is very goal-oriented. And this kind of work in the Alliance, I feel we have to come to terms with one thing, that this is very different. I've been trying to remember who it was who said that, but I can't remember, that there can be two kinds of games in the world, finite games and infinite games. Now the finite games give us a very nice, there's a clicking factor. Yes, I have set out to do this and I do this and I've completed it and I feel good, The kind of work we have to do ahead of us is not mostly of that kind. Here and there are goal-oriented stuff which we can do, like we want to plant so many trees, it can be done. But it's on and on we do without often having a very specific result, especially because things like climate action or even looking at ecosystems around us, it's a very long-term work, if not infinite game, and the difference between the infinite game and finite game is not only that we are not able to complete it, we need to just walk in with a lot of trust. Yes, this is good work. Or when you talked about the underpinnings, yes, I believe in these things, and therefore I will do it. It may or may not yield any specific result. Now that is going to be very difficult because not only schools, the entire world seems to be on extremely target-based working. And having said that, let me go quickly to, can I have the second slide which I had given? Is Archana or Nayan there? Yeah? Yeah. So back to looking at the purpose and the scope of Teach for Nature. One of the things out of all the different things you said, Sumitra, I'd like to, for instance, take the word inclusive. If we were to be inclusive of all kinds of schools, there might be schools who are doing fantastic work like you. There might be schools which say, well, management won't allow anything, I cannot do anything, and that's it. There is my only job is to do this. There it may be for finding ways in which teachers who choose to, can get to educated about actually some of this kind of work may be enabling children to do better in multiple ways, including academic. And it may take a long time. It might be an infinite game in that school for somebody to really move from, completely not doing anything to doing little things wherever possible and maybe inspiring others. And there could be also other people who are already doing something, who can do something more, You can't find that slide? Yeah, no problem. So, for the Teach for Nature Fellowship is basically fairly close-ended in terms of at least the kind of things that can be introduced in a normal urban school. And also, on the other hand, look at, actually for people to go in and teach. And now, when you say teach in a particular school, to get other teachers started with what can be done. And one of the kind of things that we need to do, therefore, is to look at funding. Because there are certain schools which may be very well able to, pay for another teacher to do all of this kind of work. Because anything you take, whether it's games or, crafts or dance, for everything needs somebody to anchor that activity. So also will this will require somebody to anchor certain activities, or we have also found when we add on to the activities of the other teachers, it very often fizzles out because that person's primary goal, the goal-orientedness is very different and they don't find the time to do something else. So Teach for Nature Fellowship, we felt initially we would try to look at, some 10 to 20 people who would like to join in. And very much like in Teach for India, they choose youngsters and the request is, give 2 years of your time for the country. Give 2 years of your time for nature. And then people may want to get back to a high-paying job. But till then, support them with a stipend or with a salary that sees them through for those first 2 years of work as youngsters. And for that, we feel it's just that if we stretch ourselves, we might find parents in the school who will fund it, but also we want to look at where in schools which cannot do that, are unable to do that, to try and find other ways, getting funding from maybe corporates, maybe from anybody, to see that these fellows are paid a regular salary and therefore they can go to 2 or 3 schools and constantly work there to bring in some thoughts and ideas, because it's really unfair to teachers who have never been exposed to any of this kind of teaching and learning to say, look at our website, look at something and get started. It doesn't happen that way, as we all know. So we feel that a group of people, a gradually expanding group of people who can go out into schools and work there, getting other teachers started on something or the other is important. Of course, it's also important, like the school which has never attempted any such work, maybe our request will be to say, okay, take any one class if you like, 7th or 8th or whatever. Normally, the 10th, nobody will touch 9th and 10th, but at least the middle school, 7th, 8th, try and set aside one period a week or one double period a week for a year and see for yourself what happens. And a Teach for Nature fellow goes there for that time and works with those children. If there's more than one section, there must be more than 1 or 2 classes a week for this person. And they are able to, and the school has to see for themselves. But of course, for that, the person at the head has to be convinced. But once they're convinced, how can the Alliance help? Through Teach for Nature. This is one way, one direct way in which things can get started. So coming back to the kind of things we put, Teach for Nature is to support CAN, but also coming back to the steering committee, we said inspirational schools who have already pioneered such education. And when Indira, you said something about, can you think of certain other things? I forget what it is you said. But whatever it is, that's why we need people like you. So it's not all the ideas don't exist with Bhoomi Network, certainly not. So if we can just share, then our role that Rama, you asked in Bhoomi Network is to try and make that happen once we agree that, okay, this is good. I think one point you made was the area-based schools or the, the forming different clusters and so on. And again, that kind of a thing I see is a way of growing organically. So in what we do, it's not only learning about nature, but learning to be like nature, rather than make a compulsion of this many schools in this city or whatever. It's better to go organically with those who are already convinced, who are willing to do this, and to support that group in some way. There again, if there is somebody there who wants to be a Teach for Nature fellow, then we see to it that they go through the 2 months training and then get started. And of course, as we said, we will start with material also, giving them. We've tried to make some very simple booklets, and I think in the next few months, we must put together some lesson plans, because lesson plans, we know, is what makes it easier for a teacher who is not so much passionate about nature, but somewhere interested in nature. What can she do? How can she get started? I think lesson plans is very important for such a person. So trying to get lesson plans from different people, different schools, putting it in the website. And we have to do all these small things. God is in the details, They also say devil is in the details, but let's stick with God is in the details for now. So all that detailing is what many of us have together try and do. So we hope we get started with some of the pioneering schools which have come out, which can inspire many of us, and also invite a whole lot of schools in and around us, invite ourselves to connect. And Bhoomi will also try to offer other workshops, not done all by ourselves, but done by many others who are experts in, or who are passionate about that area of work. And so I think the rest of it I've already talked about.
Yeah.
So that's I'm sure I've not fleshed it out enough. That's because we have not fleshed it out enough. This is something which will evolve as we go along. And as we go along, we will, all of you are most welcome to share your ideas, etc. We'll find ways to do it also.
Yeah, so thank you, Seetha. Thank you, Indira. Thank you, Sumitra, for this engaging conversation. I'm feeling, I wish I could listen more and have more deeper conversations, but I'm sure like online is an option where we can, we don't have to travel great distances. And like Seetha mentioned, we need to build this together, and there is a lot of scope for all of us to join. And with that positive thought is what leading us ahead. Before we close, I'd just like to mention that 2 of our panelists, Harini Nagendra and Samir Susodia, were not able to join us today for their own reasons. We certainly miss inputs from their rich experience of anchoring initiatives for climate action, but another time maybe perhaps we'll link up with them. So thank you so much. I'm sorry, Anupama, we overshot time, but I just couldn't come in. I was also deeply engrossed in listening, but not too much, I think. So, yeah. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank you for this vision. It's really quite amazing. And I think your journey has been inspirational, and it continues to inspire many of us who have been acquainted with you. And I think just this whole idea of CAN is just so, possible and so there. I don't know what else to say, but I want to thank you for this idea, because it really makes one come alive. Yeah.
As I said, we can all, as I said, we can all thank each other, and all of us together can make it much more amazing.
to the Sangha.
So, yeah, I think that bears repeating, Rama, what you said.
Yeah.
What Thich Nhat Hanh said.
Yeah, the next Buddha will be the
A
Sangha.
Sangha. It won't be a single person. It will be a community. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Rama, again, I'm not the villain here. Definitely so much reflection, so much food for thought for all of us to carry forward. And like Seetha shared, this is just the beginning, and we really hope, this is something that, we can take it ahead. I would like all of you to be around. Request Rama to hand over the token of gift. Seetha? Yes. Indira Vijay Simha. Sumitra Gautama. Thank you everyone here. Thank you so much. I'm sure all of us are left with a lot of questions and thoughts in our mind. Very soon, we plan to have an online engagement to take this conversation forward, because we are really short of time here. The details of this session would be shared with all of you through email, or we will be in touch with you with regards to that. And for schools who would like to be a part of the Alliance and would like to sign up right now after listening to these conversations, you can approach Rama Kumar, who will be at the counter. She will be in the lobby. So once we close this session, you can also go and register there. So before we break for tea and have some chai pe charcha, we would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of the panelists, the guests, and our friends for coming and supporting us. A special thanks to Padmashri Dr. Ullas Karanth, who had graced us with his esteemed presence today. Here we would also like a special thanks to Chinmay Dholakia, who came up with the catchy title of All Schools Can. And he also designed the logo for the Alliance. Chinmay, come. We would like to invite Seetha to come and present a token gift to Chinmay Dholakia too.
Registration, everything is free. There is no cost attached to registering.
Okay. Here, we would also like to mention that the registration for the events, for the Alliance, is completely free. So, whoever is interested, please register for the Alliance. Before we close the event today, we would like to close today's event by chanting Bhoomi Mangalam. This chant is a salutation to Mother Earth and praying for her well-being.
So we request all of you to join us, whoever knows this chant. Bhoomi Mangalam, Bhoomi Mangalam, Udaka Mangalam, Udaka Mangalam, Agni Mangalam, Agni Mangalam, Vayu Mangalam, Vayu Mangalam, Gagana Mangalam, Gagana Mangalam, Surya Mangalam, Surya Mangalam, Chandra Mangalam, Chandra Mangalam, Jagata Mangalam, Jagata Mangalam, Jiva Mangalam, Jiva Mangalam, Deha Mangalam, Deha Mangalam, Mano Mangalam, Mano Mangalam, Atma Mangalam, Atma Mangalam, Sarva Mangalam, Bhavatu Bhavatu Bhavatu, Sarva Mangalam, Bhavatu Bhavatu Bhavatu, Sarva Mangalam, Bhavatu Bhavatu Bhavatu.
Thank you all for coming, and we can all step out for chai pe charcha. We can take this discussion ahead now. Thank you so much.